PhD, University College, London. He was the principal of the Arts and Science DJs in College, Karachi. Gul grew up in Karachi, where she lived till partition in 1947. Gul went to Bombay University in Pune, where she read philosophy. She came to London in 1958, where she worked as a sub-editor at the Encyclopedia Britannica for some years. In 1975, she started working for David Gain College, where she stayed for over 40 years and retired as a vice principal. Although in her late 80s, she still works at the college part-time as a senior advisor. Mulla Mahago, Katro, Sikana Shahadat, Asna Ibadat, Nazar Naz, Priyan Josi, Sabuti bhi, Gurbakhshani Sahiba ke Azad Bakshidasi, Gul Chhuggani Sahiba. Bhattu taali basawada. Still guarding himself.
Cindy Gana and Chiti Kale India. So अंग्रेजी में गालेंगे. ठीक है? Is it okay? Very kind, very loving, very affectionate, and we too were the youngest children of his late age. I was 16 when we left Karachi, and I learnt about his achievements only when I was a teenager, because no one talked about what he had done. I didn't know that he had done the thesis on mysticism until I was 15. Anyway, I went to the college with him and loved being the daughter of the principal of the college. Now, my father married at an early age of, I think, when he was in 1920s, and he had 2 children. His wife died, I think, in childbirth, and I remember that we used to visit my half-brother in Karachi and my sister, who came to live with us when she got married to an ICS man who was the commissioner of the Kumaon division. And I spent a lot of time with them, so we always kept in touch. And one of my brother's son is still alive. He's in his 70s and he lives in Bangalore. And I keep in touch with him by email. Then you know all about his the book he wrote about Noor Jahan, which I haven't got a copy of, and in fact, if I can find a copy, I would like to take it back with me. And I have wonderful memories of my childhood in Karachi, and we were looked after. My mother, he married the second time, and he had 4 children. My older sister, who was 17 years older, and a brother who was older than her. But he did not do much education. He went to school, but he never went to university. But my sister, Mrs. Kriplani, was the first woman graduate in those days. My father also encouraged us to read, because we had such a wonderful library full of classics and all the wonderful books. And we had a a statue of Mr. Pickwick, who was one of the Dickens characters, on top of one of the bookcases. So we grew up with a lot of books, and we all are very, very keen readers of literature. We were, as children, we were not brought up as strict Hindus. No one took us to the temple, no one talked about religion or particularly about Hindu gods. So I think that was the influence probably of Sufism in a way. And I have grown up accepting all religions, respecting them. I have been to a mosque, I have been to the churches in England because some of my friends are Christians, and we visit them and we go to church with them on Sunday if we are staying with them. Now, I remember that when I found out about the thesis my father had written, I wanted to read it. And I actually read it about 3-4 years ago, and I must tell you it is quite difficult to understand it. So I have read it the second time, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And it has taught me so much about different Sufism in different countries. And I'm surprised as to how much work he must have done to be able to quote the Vedas, to be able to quote Masnavi, which is Iranian, and to quote all the wonderful things that people, English authors have written about the 4 poets he's mentioned, particularly Coleridge. When I was doing my first year in college, he taught us English literature. And one of the poems I remember was The Ancient Mariner by Coleridge. Yes, yeah. And it was wonderful. Of course, then suddenly he died of a heart attack. And I was coming back from the college, and I saw that the street was full of people. And I couldn't understand what had happened. Why were so many people in the street? Something must have happened. When I got nearer the house, I realized that they were all standing outside our house. And I found out that my father had suddenly died of a heart attack, go to Bombay by boat. Mir Ghulam Ali actually wanted to buy the whole library, which I believe my sister sold to him. After a few months, when he went to collect the books, he found that most of the classics, the first editions, were missing, and they had disappeared. So we presume that the 4th volume of the Shahjo Rasalo should have been in the drawers in his study, but it was never found. And I know that Mr. Daud Pota and his whole family were our family friends. His young daughters were my friends. My mother and Mrs. Daud Pota were friends, and they used to call each other Adi all the time. So we grew up knowing all these people, and it was wonderful. And we were very sorry to hear later on, when I came to visit Pakistan in year 2000, I came to promote my college, and Mrs. Anita Ghulam Ali came to my stall, and pardon?
Carry on, please.
And then when she found out whose daughter I was, she invited me for a cup of tea in her office the next day. And I went there, and she had 2 older men sitting there, and she said, "Meet these people, they were your father's students." And then she told me that there was a case in court that Mr. Daupota claimed that he had written the 3 volumes and not my father. But she said the case was thrown out. And after that, I didn't hear anything. She also presented me with Shah Jo Rasalo, which had been printed in Pakistan at that time. And later on, I was in London and I met Dr. Gul Chhuggani, who invited me to a cultural fair they were holding in London last year. And that's where they gave me the other volume, which had also been reprinted in Pakistan. And you have no idea how happy I felt that my father had not been forgotten in Pakistan. Whereas we Hindu Sindhis do not know much about Shah Jo Rasalo. I have some friends who have never heard of it, and they are all Sindhi women, and they don't know, and I'm really ashamed that they don't. It's a pity. Anyway, as you know, I finished my education in London and started working there. I married a man who came from Larkana, and I believe that his father was the physician for Mr. Bhutto, and he died before partition, and we were told by a number of people who have visited Larkana that there was a street named after him, Kalyan Street. So 2 days ago, we went to Larkana. We were looking for the street, trying to find out, but everything had changed. We met one gentleman who said, "Oh, I remember Kalyan Street was here, and now the name has been changed," but there was no name there at all at that time. So we don't really know what happened. My daughter came with me because she was born in London, and I have only one child, and that's my daughter. She came with me and she wanted to go and find out where I was born in Karachi. She wanted to know where her father was born. So that's why we went to Larkana. And it was a wonderful trip for her. She's gone back, otherwise she would have been here today. And her profession was that she became a casting director. And she did the film Lagan, which everyone must have seen. And she sent about 29 British and characters to work in the film. And she herself went to live in Bhuj for about 4 or 5 months because it was very, very hot. And I went to visit her. It was a lovely visit. Now she then wanted to train as a therapist. So she's now a psychotherapist as well as a casting director. So that's it. And that's the story of my life. My father, we remember as a wonderful human being who looked after us, provided us with everything. He used to wake me up when I had my exams. He would wake me up at 6 o'clock because he would get up and make a cup of tea for himself. And he would get us up and talk to us. Second thing he taught us was that we were not to eat too many fried things. Nothing was fried in our house. And we had to eat a lot of salads, which we grew in the garden. And by the way, I went to see my house in year 2000, and there were some refugees living there from Burma, and they invited me, gave me a cup of tea, and he was staying in my parents' bedroom, and I recognized the house. But this time I went to try and find the house, and all the bungalows had been changed and new ones had been built. but we found the location. So I'm happy that we did that. And I must say I am extremely grateful to Professor Memon for giving me this opportunity to come and meet all of you wonderful people. I think I could cry with happiness. Okay. Thank you all very, very much. If there are any questions you want to ask, I am here. Please ask me. Okay? Thank you.